This is 5 in 10 from SkyWatchTV. I'm Derek Gilbert, a special program for February 1st of 2024. As you can tell, we're on a different set. Actually, this is the set that Sharon and I use for our weekly program called Unraveling Revelation. But because we've got an extra chair here, we've invited SkyWatchTV CEO Joe Ardis Horn, host of SkyWatchTV, to sit in today. He's going to be a guest on my upcoming podcast, an upcoming edition of my podcast called A View from the Bunker. You can find that at our website, gilberthouse.org. But while Joe is here, we're tagging him for extra work today for a 5 in 10 episode. Joe, as we are coming up on a consequential election, and I know we hear that every year. I can remember thinking back in 1992, it was like the first time I remember hearing this is the most important election ever, and every 4 years since then is the most important election.
Right.
We
and
might not have another,
too.
And midterms, we might not have another election if we don't win this one.
Right.
And I think that's by design. The news media obviously needs to make money. They need to get us to tune in, and so they present it like it's a sporting event, and it's constantly statistics, this guy is up in the polls by 5 points, but in the battleground states, the things are different and the math doesn't. It's presented like a sporting event, which I think is intended to get us riled up, anxious, constantly tuning back in for that whatever dopamine hit or whatever our brains release when we see all this stuff. And Sharon says, because she's been paying attention to politics longer than I have, that you can take this back. I mean, I imagine they're probably, you go back to the early 19th century, and the big Adams-Jefferson showdown was, people getting really angry about that. What do we as Christians do? How do we process this? In fact, we had a conversation like this back in 2016, the day after the election in November of 2016, when Trump won the election, and it was like, that was unexpected. How do we process this as Christians?
Right.
We're coming into an election, it looks like a showdown, a rematch of the 2020 election, which again is getting a lot of people really riled up on both sides of the political spectrum. How do we as Christians process this?
It's so giant, I'm not even sure that we're meant to. If the objective is to politically dissect and speculate about what all of the reasons what we're seeing unfold are being organized by those that are organizing those events. So in other words, we could get completely fever-pitched like I once was, totally enthralled into this giant movement, and we sit around, we listen to every podcast we can find, and we listen to the conspiracy sites, and also what are they saying on the mainstream media, and what's Fox saying, and what's CNN saying, who are the talking heads, did this senator or this congressman weigh in, who's he for, what side, he switched teams, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then there's the idea that some of this is being organized on purpose to be so in your face as to deflate your interest, so you will just politically check out of the process. If, for example, you're one that believes that somebody totally incoherent was criminally installed in 2020, maybe the outcome would be that you would just throw your hands up and say, forget it. This Babylonian system is beyond repair. I'm just not even going to vote anymore. Maybe it's being done, and these people don't have as much power as we think they have, which is why they're in a panic to stop certain political rivals, because they know at the end of the day votes really do matter, and they can only fudge the numbers within a certain margin. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So much like you're talking about, you're looking at blue team and red team, and then there's the middle team, and if you get lost in that world, you now run the risk of failing to do something that my father and I talked about many, many, many times, and that is the prevailing objective. We care about what happens in this country. So he used to say, I will take the one day every 4 years and go pull the voting lever, and I will do it informed because I have a responsibility as an American to go pull that voting lever, and I care about the world I'm leaving behind for my children.
Yeah.
But I refuse to live in fear of political outcomes. I refuse to have it derail me for one moment of what I'm doing in the ministry, because at the end of the day, this world, we know where it's heading politically. Those that are in positions of power, that are pulling levers, are only there borrowing that power because God has allowed for them to be there for such a time as whatever He's allowing. Mm-hmm. Our objective as Christians is to do our responsibility perhaps as an American to pull the lever for our children, but our prevailing responsibility is our commission to be preachers of gospel. And so that may sound very generic to people. Well, sure, you can say it's to preach the gospel, but you're not going to be able to preach the gospel soon if you don't get back into this political. And now you run the risk of maybe even unintentionally pushing for something known as dominionism.
Yeah, yeah.
The idea that you can elect enough officials that represent your morality, and that's how you get the gospel out there. Dang it, we stack the courts. But you're back into this almost eventually perversive, even if it's unintentional, line of thinking that men could ever suffice or replace or pay platitudes to or adequately amount to the same objective or replace the preaching of the gospel.
Yeah.
I don't know if I articulated that well.
I think if nothing else,
supplant was the word I was looking for.
I think if nothing else, if you focus too much on any one thing, where it's taking time away from that one commission, that one job that we were left by our commander-in-chief, preach the gospel, make disciples of all people, all nations, all ethnos, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That was the one job we were given, and if we take that time that we could have spent doing those things, sharing the hope that we have in Christ with family members, friends, colleagues, coworkers, and focusing too hard on, well, anything really, whether it's politics or sports or collecting beer cans, whatever. It's taking us away from the one mission that we were given. And there may be some who say, well, yeah, okay, you're de-emphasizing the most important aspect of daily life because politics determines how our lives are governed. It's like,
bingo.
Yeah, but remember that the first century church completely transformed the world.
That's exactly it.
Living under the control of the Roman Empire and the Jewish religious establishment in Jerusalem, the Sanhedrin, who were actively sending out agents to assassinate Christians, and yet they were able to turn the world on its head and deplatform, as it were, these fallen principalities and powers who controlled the pagan empire of Rome, the pagan kingdom of Egypt, et cetera, and so on. So yes, when we get caught up in the political game, there were several points in my life where I clearly remember changing my paradigm on politics. 30 years ago, I was arguing with my father that Bill Clinton was a good guy. He was the victim of a vast right-wing conspiracy. And then Kenneth Starr produced The Blue Dress and the DNA evidence. Like, oh.
Oops.
Okay. Well, but then I remember during the George W. Bush administration, where he said, we will not do empire, but we will not be nation building. And then suddenly we were in Afghanistan, nation building.
Yeah, nation building, right, exactly.
Oh. And something like that happened again recently as I was listening to conservative talk radio hosts who are more concerned with winning than they are with the message. Okay, wait a minute. Now, and I'm not going to name names, but a particular host who professes to be a Christian is saying, look, I will run over your grandmother to win this next election.
Like a moral duty to do it even.
Okay, for what purpose? I mean, and this person espousing changing the message perhaps on the sanctity of unborn life, because being a very dogmatic on this, on protecting the most helpless among us, unborn life, is not a winning message in certain battleground states. So we have to, soften the message there. It's like, now wait a minute.
Yeah.
Years ago, I interviewed somebody who was very active in the Right to Life movement in the state of Iowa, who recounted how a political strategist for the Republican Party took him into a room and said, okay, look, if you want to win the election, you're going to have to tone down this. It's like, okay, what's the point of winning if you're just going to be perpetuating the same policies?
Exactly.
And maybe then what we need to be doing is changing hearts and minds, which you can only do through sharing the gospel.
Right.
And I think that's what it comes down to.
No, you're absolutely right. And that actually, it reminds me of another part of what my dad would say when he was putting this caveat together, that sure, we can get enraptured by politics, but we forget then this prevailing strategy to basically make our mission in life to be obedient to our callings, to preach the gospel. He would say, because there's only one way that you can actually change, as a side effect, the politics of men, and that is to get to their hearts. Men that love Jesus no longer believe in taking the life of a child from the womb.
Right.
Men that love Jesus no longer have a desire to control every micro movement of your life under a lens and to try to manufacture and architect mechanisms and plans to keep how you spend your money under control and eventually create a digital dollar replacement so that they can turn you off like the Chinese communist credit scoring system.
Right.
These are not the dreams and the aspirations of a man who loves the Lord.
Right.
It becomes about freedom, personal choice,
Right.
opportunity, putting forth the gospel. So
Yeah.
it also corrects this other thing. Now, ultimately, Derek, getting back to like the sense of 2024 and where we are at, people ask me, and I tell them to talk to smarter people like Derek Gilbert if you want a better answer. But people do ask me, and they're like, hey, you get to sit in the room with a lot of bright minds. What do you think is going to happen in 2024? And my answer has become, I really don't have a prediction that is attached too closely to 2024, but I can tell you what I think will happen after that regardless. And I've never talked about this on TV, and I'm always really careful, so I'll stay careful. But if I am interpreting the level of hostility between red team and blue team correctly, I am becoming a believer in one who now believes, regardless of who occupies the White House, where we're actually headed as a country is a very fragmented, non-United States anymore, where the idea of secessionism, which right now is a totally forbidden word. Mm-hmm. Somebody brings it up and oh my goodness, the political heat storm. So for those that would want to put words in my mouth, am I on television advocating for secessionism? Not yet, but that I am telling you, I believe is going to be a very popular side effect of how people eventually just take the whole board game and they're not going to win, right? So they just turn the whole board game over and they grab their pawn and they're going home. Yeah. They're done. It's from both sides, whether they are wrong or correct, which side you believe has aspirations to be more in keeping with your morality and politically correct. It's irrelevant. These two teams are headed for divorce court. And that's going to manifest in unprecedented calls for secession.
And I think we're already seeing some of the impetus of that with what's happening at the border, the showdown between the Biden administration and the state of Texas. Well, speaking of what's coming in 2024, I want to close out by just letting viewers know that there is a virtual conference coming in at the end of this month. We're now on February 1st. Coming up the 29th is when this goes live. The Defender Conference, Confronting the Darkness virtual conference. And this will feature the last presentation recorded by your father before he took ill and passed in October. And in this, he kind of lays out where he thinks things are going in 2024 and perhaps beyond. What in a nutshell, with just a couple of minutes here, what did he communicate in this final presentation?
He's talking about, but if I give you a quick bullet point, it will be inadequate to the power of what we eventually labeled a talkumentary. My dad would sit and he would kind of vocalize his thoughts, and then the editors would take this and turn it into a B-rolled. It has some production values. It's very much like a kind of an almost light documentary experience as to watch him do this. But he's talking about, but not limited to, the Hunter Biden laptop. He's talking about elections of the past, the one that's coming, what Christians' expectations should be this year, and in order to stay grounded, what they need to focus on in the days ahead. And of course, obviously, we've talked a lot about that today, just in terms of where he was at and his emphasis on the need to keep focused on the gospel. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus Christ.
Right.
But that's a very generic bird's eye view of what he's talking about.
So you'll get an opportunity to see that presentation by Tom Horn, other world-class speakers, including Joe Ardis Horn, Rabbi Jonathan Kahn, Messianic Rabbi Zev Porat, Pastor Carl Gallups, Ryan Pitterson, Pastor Casper McLeod, our good friend Kenny C.
Yeah.
You always got to mention Kenny C. And we're looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table. Dr. Judd Burton, scholars like Dr. Mike Spalding, Dr. Igal German, Sharon K. Gilbert will be presenting, and Vicki Joy Anderson, who is
She's great.
Absolutely. We are so blessed that Vicki and her dad, Jeff, are now living here in our community here in the Ozarks, and we're able to take advantage of her expertise. She is a wonderful researcher, wonderful writer, and really
She's
has
next
some
level.
She truly is.
She impresses me like very few do. She is absolute. She's a think tank.
She is, and so you'll see all of the presenters listed at defenderconference.com. Take advantage of the early bird discount through February 15th. Again, this goes live on the web February 29th, available for 90 days only. So don't wait. Sign up now, defenderconference.com. Again, Joe Artis-Horn, thank you for joining us in studio today. Thank you for taking time to watch. This is 5 in 10 from SkyWatch TV.
Jonathan Cahn is back with his most explosive book ever, The Josiah Manifesto. This stunning book exposes whether or not a 3,000-year-old calendar of appointed days provides the secret to the most dynamic year of our lives. Even ordaining a plague, a national lockdown, days of fire, and the changing of the Supreme Court. Secret information regarding an anonymous prayer and a mysterious template that may lie behind the event that overtook Capitol Hill and shook the nation. And the mysterious ancient king that may have revealed the secret behind a modern American president, and so much more. Also included in this must-have collection, The Gods of the Bible Unveiled on DVD, where Derek Gilbert systematically breaks down how to understand what the gods in the Bible are and what their place in Christianity actually is. In this instructional guide, you'll be taken step by step through why God calls his sons gods in the Psalms, how the fall in Genesis was only one of 3 divine rebellions, and how the Greek gods and titans found their origin in our Bibles. But that's not all. In this amazing offer, you'll also receive the Jonathan Cahn Collection, featuring 3 uncut, extended, and too hot for TV episodes on the return of the gods that will leave you speechless. This DVD also includes 3 additional episodes of Jonathan's best interviews with the SkyWatchTV investigative team. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of over $75. Yours now for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. But right now, you can upgrade your master collection to include the absolutely astonishing Josiah Manifesto Uncensored 8-DVD album featuring hours of additional totally uncensored raw materials and mysteries that are not included in the book or anywhere else but right here, including the Island of Mystery, the Winds of Hinnom, Jehu and the Temple of Baal, the Jubilee and Redemption and the Child of the Nile, and the Manifesto Part 1 and 2 and the very last mystery. This special upgrade includes all of the items from the Josiah Manifesto Master Collection and the exclusive uncensored 8-DVD album, which altogether holds a retail value of $200. Yours now for your donation of only $74.99 plus shipping and handling. So be prepared to understand the end times like never before as you dive into the Josiah Manifesto Master Collection or the Master Collection with upgrade uncensored 8-DVD album. So order now at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985 and ask for the Josiah Manifesto Master Collection.